In the 1930s, the Soviet Union had already developed some of its heavy artillery that would be widely used throughout the Second World War, such as the easily recognizable 203mm Br-5 howitzer. This gun proved to be great in bringing down all but the most heavily fortified positions on the battlefield, used both in direct and indirect fire missions right up until the end of the Second World War. But what if I told you there was a even heavier, lesser known bigger brother to this gun? That would be the 280mm heavy mortar Br-5. Let's first look at some of the technical specifications of these weapons, then I will tell you a little bit more about the development of it, and lastly I will go over how did it actually fare in battle. To start off, I'd like to tell why did the Soviets actually classify this weapon as a mortar and not a howitzer, like the very similar looking Br-4. Many other armies used the mortar designation only if the weapon was capable of high firing angles, that being over 45 degrees. But in the Red Army, the term could be used more loosely even on conventional guns such as the Br-5, because the main role of this gun would be to be a siege artillery, firing from close ranges to heavily fortified targets. As mentioned before, the caliber of the gun was 280mm, making it one of the heaviest towed guns in the Soviet arsenal. It was capable of lobbing 286 kg high explosive shells up to 7 km. The velocity was lowish, 290 meters per second, making these shells subsonic. However, it could also fire anti-concrete shells with slightly higher velocities, providing an increase in the range to around 10 kilometers. Despite of having tracks, the Br-5 was not actually a self-propelled weapon. Instead, it required a truck or a tractor or some armored vehicle to tow it to firing positions. But the tracks helped to distribute the impressive weight of 19,000 kilograms to a larger surface area, as well as providing a more stable firing platform. The weapon took around 4 minutes to reload for the crew of 15 men operating it. That might sound like a long time, but considering the role being mainly a siege weapon, this was probably not a big concern. With the main technical details out of the way, we can now move on how this artillery came to be. In the 1930s, the Red Army's heavy siege artillery only consisted some of the aging pieces from the Imperial Russian days. The bulk of their modern heavy artillery consisted of the 152 and 203mm guns, but the new mobilization plans still lacked some even heavier guns. The caliber of 280mm was chosen because there were still stockpiles of the old 280mm shells from the old Schneider guns that the Red Army had inherited. The same carriage was chosen from the other new guns like the Br-4 because they were already in service, and after some trials, the new gun Br-5, designed by Ilya Ivanov, was deemed to be the winner. Despite competing a design called the B-33 that proved to be better in almost every regard. The true reason behind this choice remains unknown. Interestingly, on this report of the 280mm anti-concrete shells penetration was tested against steel, and according to the translation, the 280mm mortar shell could only dent the 102mm armor plates before shattering into pieces. But against concrete, the penetration result would definitely be something else. But nevertheless, the first batch of 20 guns would be ready by 1939, followed by additional 25 guns in the 1940s, making the total production to only around 47 units. This would be just in time, as the trial by fire was right at the Soviet Union's doorstep. On November 30th of 1939, the Soviet Union started a large-scale invasion of Finland. The This was supposed to be an easy piece of cake for the overwhelming odds of the Red Army. This conflict would be known as the Winter War. The new, super heavy Br-5 mortars were deployed to crack the heavily fortified sections of Mannerheim Line built by the Finns that had anticipated the Soviet aggression. The 280mm guns reportedly fired around 414 shells during the 3-month-long conflict. On one occasion, Br-5 mortars blasted a pillbox around 116 times from point-blank ranges, along with more than 1,203mm shells before the pillbox was neutralized. This would be more of a testament to the outstanding defenses than a failure to the Br-5. Overall, the Br-5 had proven to be a capable weapon at bringing down bunkers. The following years, the Br-5 would see limited use on the Eastern Front with little documentation. As the war was nearing its end, the Br-5 was a force to be reckoned with in the urban combat, such as in Königsberg or later in the Battle of Berlin, being able to destroy houses with the single shells from near point-blank ranges. Firepower was unmatched, but the heavy weight and narrow firing arc of only 80 degrees often held the weapon back. Transporting and setting up these guns was also very slow, as the barrel would have to be transported separately. The weapon proved to be capable in siege situations. That's what it was designed after all. But the fluid battlefield operations of the Second World War often favored the lighter guns with more tactical mobility and flexibility. After the end of Second World War, some of the guns would go over a modernization, equipping them with wheeled carriages. This modernized version would be designated as the Br-5M. The guns were gradually phased out of service, with the last units officially being dismissed in the 1970s, as these super heavy siege guns had little use in modern fighting doctrines. Today, few units survive, with at least one being displayed in St. Petersburg. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you found it interesting.